How Not to Diet by Michael Greger, MD, FACLM. Hello and welcome. Think back to your last diet attempt. Remember that electric buzz of motivation in those first few days? The promises you whispered to yourself in the mirror? And then, like clockwork, the slow fade. Old habits creeping back in. The mounting frustration. That sinking feeling that maybe you're just fundamentally bad at this whole thing. Here's the kicker. There's a $50 billion industry banking on exactly that feeling. An industry that's built its empire on one devastating truth. Your failure is their business model. They're selling you the newest book, the shiniest program, the miracle pill, fully expecting you'll be back for round 2 in 6 months. But what if I told you something that might just blow your mind? It's not your fault. Your struggles aren't about willpower. They're not some moral deficiency. You're not broken. Actually, you're an incredibly fine-tuned survival machine. The real problem? You've been dropped into an environment that's basically rigged against you from day one. What if you could stop wrestling with your body and start partnering with it instead? Years ago, a doctor named Michael Greger, who founded nutritionfacts.org, went searching for answers. His mission started with a family miracle. When he was just a kid, his grandmother was handed a death sentence at 65. End-stage heart disease. Weeks to live. They sent her home to get her affairs in order. But here's where the story takes a turn. Someone wheeled her into a clinic, run by lifestyle medicine pioneer Nathan Pritikin, and put her on a radically different diet. A few weeks later, she walked out on her own 2 feet, not just improved, cured. She lived another 31 years, long enough to watch her grandson graduate from medical school. That moment lit a fire in young Michael. He wondered, if the cure to our biggest killer could be hiding in plain sight in medical journals, what else was buried in there? So he and his team took on an absolutely massive project, diving into 500,000 scientific papers on obesity to find out what the evidence actually says. Not trendy theories, not celebrity testimonials, just cold, hard facts. What he discovered wasn't just another diet. He found a blueprint for how our bodies are actually designed to handle weight. And the answer to permanent, healthy weight loss, it's not about starving yourself. It's about embracing abundance. Here's my promise to you. By the time we're done here, you'll understand why your body has been fighting this battle. You'll see the invisible forces working against you. And most importantly, you'll learn the evidence-based formula for creating the last diet you'll ever need. This isn't about how to diet. This is about how not to diet. So where does our story really begin? It starts with understanding who the villain is. And spoiler alert, it's not you. For millions of years, our bodies evolved in a world where food was scarce. Our ancestors were foragers, living by a brutal rule, survival of the fattest. Our brains became finely calibrated calorie-seeking missiles. We developed powerful drives to hunt down the highest calorie foods we could find. That sweet, ripe fruit? Absolute gold. A handful of nuts? Treasure. The humans who excelled at finding these foods and storing that energy as body fat were the ones who survived to pass on their genes. You didn't inherit a fat gene. You inherited a survival gene. For 99.9% of human history, this system worked beautifully. Then, in an evolutionary blink of an eye, really just the 1970s and 80s, everything changed. We didn't change. Our DNA is identical. But the world around us transformed completely. We got dropped into what Dr. Greger calls the toxic food environment. Suddenly, calories weren't precious anymore. They were everywhere. And the food industry, chasing profits, figured out how to weaponize our ancient survival instincts against us. They learned to mass-produce and chemically engineer food-like products that hit all our primitive pleasure buttons simultaneously. Dr. Greger has a perfect name for these: crap, calorie-rich and processed foods. Think about it. We're hardwired to crave sugar, fat, and salt. So what did the industry do? They took plants, stripped out the fiber and water, and concentrated them into pure, hyperpalatable sugar, oil, and white flour. They engineered foods with a bliss point that lights up the same reward pathways in our brains as addictive drugs. Then they dropped billions on the most sophisticated marketing campaign in human history to make sure we and our kids would be hooked. This is the real problem. We're normal people having normal reactions to a completely abnormal environment. The food industry naturally tells a different story. They'd love for us to believe it's all on us. They point fingers at our lack of willpower or insufficient exercise. Dr. Greger demolishes this argument. When you look at the actual data, our collective physical activity hasn't really declined. If anything, it's ticked up slightly. But our calorie intake? That's skyrocketed. So how has medicine responded to this crisis? We've thrown solutions at the symptoms while ignoring the cause. We've turned to bariatric surgery, stapling, bypassing, or cutting out parts of perfectly healthy organs. These are major, risky operations. And they don't fix why you overeat in the first place. They just make it physically painful to do so. The complications can be brutal, from lifelong nutrient deficiencies to, tragically, increased suicide risk. We've tried diet drugs, but the history of weight loss medication is basically a graveyard. Fen-Phen got pulled for destroying heart valves. Meridia got yanked for causing heart attacks and strokes. The drug industry's business model thrives on repeat customers, and sometimes the side effects are just baked into the formula. And of course there are supplements. Billions flow into fat burners and appetite suppressants. But this industry is barely regulated. When investigators actually test these pills, they find them contaminated with everything from illegal stimulants to unlisted laxatives and antidepressants. And the ones that aren't dangerous, they simply don't work. This is the great diet lie. We've been told to fight our bodies, to cut, drug, and starve them into submission. Dr. Greger offers a radically different path. Instead of asking which fad diet wins, he asked, what are the ingredients of an ideal, permanent, healthy weight loss plan? What does the mountain of evidence actually say works? He identified 17 key ingredients. And when you look at them together, a crystal clear picture emerges. The first and perhaps most powerful ingredient is calorie density. This is the secret. Sustainable weight loss isn't about eating less food. It's about eating more food that just happens to have fewer calories. Let me break this down. Your stomach comfortably holds about 4 cups of food. That's its capacity. It doesn't count calories. It just knows when it's physically full. You could pack those 4 cups with strawberry ice cream. That's roughly 2,000 calories, your entire day's worth in one sitting. Or you could eat strawberries. To get those same 2,000 calories from whole strawberries, you'd need to eat 44 cups. That's 11 full stomachs. It's physically impossible. You'd be stuffed long before you even got close to overeating. This is the magic of low-calorie density foods. They're mostly water and fiber. Think about an apple versus apple juice. You can chug a bottle of apple juice with 240 calories in under a minute. But to get those same 240 calories from whole apples, you'd need to munch through about 5 cups of apple slices. That would take hours. Which one do you think leaves you feeling fuller? This is why the ideal weight loss approach is packed with water-rich foods and fiber. This isn't portion control. It's about changing the quality of your portions so you can eat until you're satisfied and still lose weight. But fiber's magic goes even deeper. The second key principle is what Dr. Greger calls walling off your calories. When you eat a whole plant food, like a bean, a corn kernel, or an almond, its calories are physically locked inside cell walls made of fiber. Your body can't absorb them all at once. Think about eating a handful of whole almonds. No matter how thoroughly you chew, tiny nut fragments make it all the way through your digestive system, carrying their fat calories with them, undigested. Studies show that when you eat whole almonds, you might only absorb about 70% of the calories on the label. But almond butter? The industrial grinding has obliterated those protective cell walls. All that fat is completely exposed. Your body absorbs nearly every calorie. Same deal with whole grains. When you eat intact grains like steel-cut oats or brown rice, the starch is locked away, it digests slowly. But grind it into flour, even 100% whole wheat flour, and you've demolished that protective structure. The starch is naked. It floods your bloodstream like pure sugar. This is why whole wheat bread can spike your blood sugar nearly as much as white bread, while whole wheat pasta, because its starch is so densely compacted, is much gentler. And intact whole grains are best of all. This brings us to the engine room of weight control, your microbiome and your insulin response. All that fiber and starch you don't fully digest, it's not waste. It's food for the trillions of beneficial bacteria living in your gut. This is your forgotten organ. When you feed them, they return the favor. They transform that fiber into compounds called short-chain fatty acids. These remarkable molecules get absorbed into your bloodstream, travel to your brain, and tell you you're satisfied. They're your true fullness signal. When you eat a fiber-starved, processed food diet, your good bacteria starve. And when they starve, you're perpetually hungry. Your brain is literally waiting for the "I'm full" signal that never arrives. Meanwhile, this processed diet is spiking a different hormone, insulin. Insulin is your body's fat storage hormone. It pulls calories from your blood and locks them away. High insulin levels essentially padlock your fat cells shut, preventing you from burning your own stored fat. What spikes insulin? Sure, sugar does. But here's Dr. Greger's surprising finding. Animal protein often spikes insulin just as much, sometimes more, than pure sugar. In studies, beef or fish can trigger bigger insulin surges than high-sugar foods. Add tuna to mashed potatoes, and the insulin spike jumps 50% higher than potatoes alone. Why? It might be the specific amino acids concentrated in animal proteins. This creates a perfect storm. You eat meat and refined carbs, say a burger on a bun. The meat and bun both spike your insulin, pushing your body into fat storage mode. Meanwhile, there's no fiber to feed your beneficial bacteria, so your brain never gets the stop eating signal. You store fat and still feel hungry. See? It's not your fault. The deck is stacked against you. So Dr. Greger's blueprint for the optimal diet becomes obvious. It needs to be low in calorie density and high in water and fiber, so you can eat abundantly. Low in addictive, processed foods to break the bliss point cycle. Structurally intact to wall off calories and slow digestion. Microbiome friendly to feed your beneficial bacteria. Low on the insulin index to keep you in fat-burning mode. And naturally, clean of pollutants and anti-inflammatory. What diet checks every single one of these boxes? A whole food, plant-based diet. A diet built around fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. That's beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils. This is the diet that, in clinical trials, produces the most dramatic weight loss without counting calories or restricting portions. In the broad study, participants eating a whole food plant-based diet lost an average of 27 pounds by 6 months, and they did it eating as much as they wanted. It was the greatest weight loss ever recorded in this type of trial. But Dr. Greger doesn't stop there. This is how not to diet, after all. He provides an entire toolkit of weight loss boosters, his 21 tweaks, to accelerate your results. And this is where the science gets genuinely fascinating. He uncovered a master switch in our cells called AMPK. Think of it as your fat controller. When it's off, you store fat. When it's on, you burn fat. How do you flip the switch? One of the most powerful ways is vinegar. The acetic acid in vinegar activates AMPK. In one remarkable Japanese study, just 2 tablespoons of vinegar daily, split between 2 meals, caused significant body fat reduction. Participants lost about 5 pounds in 3 months compared to placebo, with no other diet changes. Just 2 teaspoons of vinegar with each meal. He found other AMPK activators too. Spices work. A 1/4 teaspoon of black cumin daily, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of ground ginger. All have been shown in randomized controlled trials to accelerate weight loss. He discovered natural fat blockers. When you eat dark leafy greens, the microscopic chlorophyll-filled membranes in the leaves, called thylakoids, physically bind to fat-digesting enzymes in your gut. This delays fat absorption, which triggers your ileal brake, that deep satisfaction signal, making you feel fuller longer. He found natural fat burners. We all have brown fat, a type that doesn't store energy but burns it to create heat. How do you activate it? Mild cold exposure works, but so do the capsaicin compounds in chili peppers. He uncovered the power of chronobiology, meal timing. Remember that old saying, eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper? Turns out it's true. In a landmark Israeli study, 2 groups of women got the exact same daily calories. The group eating their biggest meal at breakfast lost more than twice as much weight as the group eating their biggest meal at dinner. Morning calories are simply less fattening than identical evening calories. And my personal favorite tweak, negative calorie preloading. If you eat a 100-calorie salad with your pasta, you've added 100 calories. But if you eat that same salad before your pasta, studies show you get so full from the salad that you eat over 200 fewer pasta calories. 100 calories in, 200 calories out. That salad just gave you negative 100 calories. Same principle with soup and apples. Eating a whole apple before a meal cuts about 300 calories from the meal. The apple itself only has about 100 calories. That's a negative 200-calorie apple. This is the whole philosophy. It's not about restriction, deprivation, or hunger. It's about being strategic. It's about eating more food. It's about using science to fill your plate with foods that are anti-inflammatory, low in calorie density, high in fiber, and incredibly satisfying. It's about adding things in, like pre-meal salads, vinegar, and spices, to boost your body's natural fat-burning processes. So, what do we take away from all this? After wading through this mountain of evidence, what's the one simple lesson? For me, it's a message of profound relief and empowerment. For decades, we've been fed a story that we're lazy, gluttonous, and weak-willed. We've been taught to see our bodies as enemies, something to be tamed, tricked, and conquered. This book completely rewrites that narrative. It tells us our bodies aren't the enemy. They're our allies, brilliantly designed for survival, but struggling to navigate a world they were never built for. The solution, then, isn't declaring war on our bodies. It's making peace with them. It's about stopping the feed to the toxic environment and starting to nourish the miraculous biology within us. It's not about restriction. It's about abundance. It's not about what you can't eat. It's about all the amazing, delicious, deeply satisfying foods you can enjoy. This isn't a 30-day challenge. It's about discovering a way of eating you can not only live with but genuinely love for the rest of your long, healthy life. If you're feeling overwhelmed, just start small. You don't need to overhaul everything at once. Try 1 or 2 simple, practical steps this week. First, start with a negative calorie preload. Before your biggest meal, eat an apple, or a simple salad with vinegar dressing, or a cup of vegetable soup. That's it. Notice how it makes you feel. Second, try a flavor tweak. Add 2 teaspoons of vinegar to your lunch and dinner. Sprinkle a 1/4 teaspoon of black cumin on your food. It's a tiny change that could create real impact. Third, shift your timing. Just try making breakfast or lunch your largest meal. And try stopping eating after 7 p.m. This journey isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's about building small, simple habits that become second nature. This is how you stop dieting and just start living. Now, we've explored an incredible amount of science today, but I'll be honest, a summary, even a thorough one, is like flipping through a travel brochure. The real journey, the genuine transformation, happens when you visit the place yourself. This book, How Not to Diet, is packed with thousands of scientific citations and hundreds of practical insights we simply couldn't cover. If anything we've discussed today has sparked something in you, if you've had that aha, that's why moment, then I genuinely encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see yourself and the food you eat forever. And of course, if this journey brought you some value today, please take a moment to subscribe. We have so many more incredible books to explore together, so many more lessons waiting. Let's keep learning and keep growing. Thank you for listening.